Welcome back to the Sherry Sylvester Show. The Texas Public Policy Foundation has been in the middle of battles to transform public education for over 3 decades. This year, we played a central role in finally passing education savings accounts, the parental choice reforms, fully 32 years after TPPF started the movement in San Antonio. But everyone in the school choice battle has always known that providing more options for parents is not the only answer. The vast majority of Texas kids will continue to be educated in public schools where reform and transformation remain the top priority. That's why I was so excited that my friend Mike Villarreal was elected to San Antonio ISD School Board in May. Mike, who's a Democrat, served 15 years in the Texas legislature, where he served on the Public Education Committee as well as Appropriations and Ways and Means, and was chair of the Financial Services Committee. After leaving the legislature, Mike founded and directed the Urban Education Institute at the University of Texas at San Antonio before joining the Higher Education Coordinating Board as an assistant commissioner. Dr. Villarreal currently serves as the principal data scientist and an equity partner at CMI Insight. He's going to talk to us about that. Mike, thanks so much for coming to the podcast today. We haven't talked in a while, and I know a lot of background on this, but fill us in on some of this stuff. First guy in your family to graduate from college. Kennedy School, Texas A&M. What are the details?
Well, lots of details. First, thanks for the introduction. That was really nice. And it is a treat to be here with you.
Thank you.
My friend, all these years. After many debates, because you and I often see solutions differently, but I care about you, and I know you care about me. And so it's wonderful to be at the same table again.
Absolutely. And we care about solutions.
And we care about solutions. We care about moving Texas forward. Absolutely. So I am from San Antonio, born and raised. My parents were committed to making a better life for my brother and myself. And then my sister, who they adopted when I was getting ready to go off to college. So education was really important in my household, and I became the first in my family to graduate from college, Texas A&M, class of 1993.
Why did you choose A&M? Because that's an interesting cultural choice.
Because
I don't think about Hispanic kids flocking to A&M.
Yeah. Well, my parents. So I say that I'm the first to graduate from college, but technically, in some ways, that's not true. My mom earned her LVN from St. Philip's College, and my father earned a certificate to be an HVAC repairman, also from St. Philip's. And so they earned some post-secondary credentials, but they didn't go to a traditional 4-year college, and that whole world was really unknown to them. And so when I was in high school, I really didn't have great advisors. And nobody, I applied to one school, and that was Texas A&M. And the reason I applied to Texas A&M was because a friend of the family invited me to go watch a football game. And he was in the band, and I was blown away by the Texas A&M band. I thought, well, yeah, I could do this. This looks fun.
Nothing funny.
So I applied to one school, got in, and I enjoyed it. I fell in love with my major. I studied economics. I minored in math. I just loved what I was studying, and it was a good experience for me. It gave me a platform to really build upon, and I ended up launching from A&M to go to Harvard, earn my master's there. And then entered public finance. But I took a year off in between undergrad and graduate school to work at the Federal Reserve Board of Governors as a research assistant.
I didn't know that.
I worked under, 2 steps under Alan Greenspan.
Oh, cool.
And I was a data analyst. I would build data sets that would be analyzed. I would perform the analysis with under the direction of a group of economists. And it was a wonderful experience. And so did that for a year, went to the Kennedy School at Harvard, finished my master's 2 years later, entered public finance. So I think the experience at the Federal Reserve really kind of stuck. I saw myself as like a numbers guy, but I wanted to work in the public space. And so I went into public finance, did that for a few years before coming back home to San Antonio, where I really had this political kind of itch to scratch, and got involved in my neighborhood association, networked in my community, and then ran for office when I was 27.
Wow.
And was elected by one vote.
Oh my gosh. So you were when we were talking about younger members, you were right in that.
Yeah, I was right in that group. Not quite the youngest, but pretty darn green. And when I was going door to door, most of the voters would ask me, "Are you even old enough to vote for yourself?" But yep, I was, and we ended up winning that race, and I got sworn in and started working mostly in the area of education policy. Why? Because it opened up doors in my world and helped me broaden my horizons and give me opportunities that my parents didn't have. And really that continues to be a driving motivation for me. Over the years, I think my thinking about the purpose of public education has evolved from, the son of an immigrant thinking about education purely as an economic path to a better life, to now really seeing it as something much larger. And that is the purpose of public education is to nurture the next generation of people who will self-govern, who will lead our democracy, who will have the critical thinking skills to discern what's right from wrong and make decisions from the ballot box to representing, holding seats like I did in the state legislature or like I'm doing now at their school board. Self-governance is what sets our country apart. Right? That's at the heart of the United States. And the mission of public education is to nurture a people who can self-govern.
Right. To create citizens. That's almost verbatim what we believe here at TPPF, that you have to create citizens who can move the democracy forward.
There you go. Common ground.
Absolutely.
This is what happens when we talk, right?
Absolutely. No disagreement there. So 15 years. When you were talking, I was thinking, well, how much, if that's your goal, how much of that can be accomplished at the legislative level? Because there's nothing in the legislature that's fought about more. As I said, 32 years on this education choice issue, and there's still no agreement about it. But in many other issues, we've gone through the A through F, establishing the A through F. Now we're debating the STAR test again. So how much do you think the legislature plays? What did you find?
I've come to appreciate how there are really different worlds. One where state policymakers exist, and they see, because the public education system is just highly complicated, and it's hard to see the entire system and see what's really going on from so far away. The people who have the best perspective on this are in the classroom, are educators who are working day in and day out with children and their families and understanding how what the obstacles are to being effective educators. And so I've come to appreciate how there's a great distance between how policymakers in the state capitol understand what's going on in our schools from what's going on in our schools from the perspective of educators. And I think one of my tasks and challenges is to be a bridge, and I'm just getting started, and so I'm kind of figuring this out. I'm about 2 months into being a
Right,
trustee
yeah.
at my school board, but I think one of my goals is to be a more effective communicator, explainer to my colleagues here at the state capitol, to help them understand how good intentions accomplished in the legislature have unintended consequences, and we need to be much better about having a healthy feedback loop, because you never get it right. And public policy, as you know, it's an ongoing dialogue. It's an
Right.
ongoing process. And so you pass a bill, and then it gets implemented. After passing through a couple of rounds of rulemaking, and it doesn't look maybe the way you originally thought it would look when you drafted the legislation.
Right.
And so being closer to the ground level, I think is going to give me a responsibility and opportunity to take things like the cell phone ban and communicate back to my colleagues in the state house, how's it really playing out? How are we seeing it? What's good? What's bad? What needs to be improved? Legislation it is healthy when there's a feedback loop, and you get nothing's perfect. You never get it right the first time.
But it's hard to. I want to find out why you left the legislature, but on the cell phone ban, also it's like, how do you listen in this feedback loop? Because when we started looking at this, parents didn't want this because they didn't want to lose contact with their kids.
Yep.
Didn't want it. Needed it.
And we're still hearing that.
I bet.
Oh yeah.
I bet. So we'll have to. We're just going to see how this plays out when we get some actual research.
And we're going to actually, change is hard, and the unknown is really scary. My school district is in a unique position to learn from other school districts. We're a school of innovation. And
what does that mean? You said you were school
It's a statutory designation that allows
state
us
or
a state designation.
Okay.
That allows us to have more discretion and flexibility in setting policy. And so there are some rules that are made at the state level that there's no way around them. We just have to follow them. But there are others, like the cell phone ban, where there is more discretion. And we're using this first year to continue to allow our campuses to have their own policies. And they do a variety of different things, from collecting them at the start of the day to classroom by classroom, students put their phone in an envelope, a simple paper envelope, and it sits aside. So they're separated from them,
And
but they're not too far from them, right?
There's this company that is now just has taken off because
selling bags
that are locked and all that.
Yeah.
I just thought that was unintended consequences. These people are now going to be rich.
Yeah.
I interrupted you.
No, all that is true, and so, but other school districts are going to have to just do the full blown package of taking away phones and making this company rich by buying their bags, and we'll observe to see how it plays out, and how effective they were at communicating with parents
who don't have any attention spans either. So, it seems to me like we're trying to deal with a cultural problem, which I'm totally support the cell phone ban, and it was bipartisan. I think everybody supports it. Most everybody.
Yeah. No, I think it's a terrible distraction from learning. I think this is a policy that, if you talk to teachers, they can't teach when kids are staring at their phone.
Right. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I took my 16-year-old granddaughter to New York City about 10 days ago, and what I noticed that made me sad is that both of us were on our phones about the same amount. And, I hadn't been in New York City in 10 years, so I had a lot to see, and she'd never been there.
Wow.
But in some ways, it was part of the experience, Okay, we're here. What is this? So,
And did you use it to help navigate yourself
We
through?
did. We definitely
Yeah.
did.
So.
Answering a lot of questions.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So
No, it's
when did they build Rockefeller Center?
yeah. Take a photo of a tree you've never seen before, a plant you've never seen before, and the phone will tell you what it is.
Right. Right.
It's amazing.
So, do you have like a summary paragraph about your 15 years in the legislature? Do
Oh, I
you
loved
ever get up and think you wish you were back there? People ask me that all the time.
There are some things that I will always miss about it. I'll miss the camaraderie. I'll miss the trying to figure things out, the problem solving, studying a problem, talking to different stakeholders, thinking about who's going to be opposed to this, and then going and talking, sitting down and talking to them, and hearing the language that they use to describe the problem and benefit from their feedback. Like, I love that. I love that. It was it's a laboratory, of a defined amount of days where you're forced together to figure things out. And of course, some people don't use their time well and are interested in other things. But I was always interested in impacting public policy, and it gave me a wonderful opportunity to learn from others and be a part of solving some important challenges. And so I'm going to miss that. I'm not going to miss and I felt like this was happening every year in an increasing way, and that is where there's less room for genuine conversation, discussion, figuring things out. It became more of a tribal experience. Well, what side are you on?
Right.
You can't possibly bring forward a good idea if you're not with my tribe.
Right. Yeah.
And that is really unfortunate. That saddened me, and it made me, by the end of the 15 years, feel like, well, have I hit a glass ceiling? Could somebody else be casting these votes and doing this work? Are my talents better used elsewhere? And that's why I decided to retire.
So now you come back in and we call you Dr. Villarreal. So how did that happen? Was that a big thing, or did you just go pick that up?
Yeah, towards the end of my legislative career, I decided that I really wanted to evaluate whether the things I worked on as a legislator worked or not.
Oh, what a great thing to do.
And so I enrolled in a PhD program at UT Austin at the LBJ School of Public Policy. And I took a whole bunch of courses that were focused on quantitative research, measuring whether policy solutions had an impact or not. And it was a wonderful time. Really enjoyed being a student, and wrote a dissertation that focused on evaluating 2 policy initiatives that we passed to make a difference in increasing the share of Texas with college degrees, 4-year degrees in particular. The passage of Texas grants and the creation of dual credit for high school students to get them started while they were in high school.
It's terrific.
And then I also wrote an kind of a policy history of higher education policy during a 20-year period. That was my dissertation. It was a wonderful program. Really gave me the tools to launch a career in as an education researcher, and I did that at UTSA, then at the coordinating board. And towards the end of my time at the coordinating board, I got to meet a group of data scientists, computer programmers, who had created a new company here in Austin called CML Insight. And they automated the production of research studies that I was producing by hand that would take me like 9 months to create. They could produce them like 50 in a week. And really, this is what I'm talking about is AI and machine learning. And I what I saw was, oh, this company is going to make me unemployed. I should jump on their bandwagon. And so I took another leap and decided to join them. And so I'm a partner with CML Insight, and we build causal AI systems for folks in healthcare, in the water utility space, in higher education, and soon in K-12.
Yeah. Well, when we get through with this podcast, let me tell you about the researcher that I found, because we were looking here since, I do a lot of work in the higher education space, and there's a lot of rhetoric about administrative bloat. It's really hard to measure it. When you go to the universities, they insist that there isn't any administrative bloat, and then when you ask them for details, they don't have any details because they really don't know. So we found out a way to do that using the SOC codes that they file with the federal government, so you can actually see who's in administration, what administrative bloat is, and we have now like a chart of all the major universities in the country and how they compare to Texas, but yeah,
Excellent.
It was all data driven because the conversation was more emotionally linked. Well, you're asking me to get rid of this person. Well, you have 40 more people than most universities your size. And,
Yeah.
and
No, we just want you to spend more on instruction.
Exactly.
Yep.
And charge the students less. So you get here, and then you decide to run for school board, and this was not like there was an open seat. So how did this happen? You beat a progressive. So what does that mean, a progressive? And so you decide to run for school board. Your kids are out of school.
They are. They had already graduated, and part of my part of my decision was that, I have a lot more time now because my children are gone.
So you need to fill it up, because that's what we do.
Well, and I still, and I'm sure you feel this way. Anybody who has enjoyed public service, you still have more to give.
Sure.
And what I saw at my school district was a school where 53%, so majority of our schools were academically unacceptable. About a third, 1 out of every 3, were reading on grade level. So 2 out of every 3 were not reading on grade level.
Right.
And I saw in the trustee who I decided to replace somebody who was not focused like a laser beam on student outcomes. And I thought that was unacceptable.
Right.
And I think it's particularly, the magnitude of a failed public education system at the center of a major city like San Antonio is huge. If we cannot provide high quality schools in the center of town, we're going to be hollowing out our economy, and that's really unacceptable.
Yeah.
So I decided to run. I in the beginning thought, well, this isn't politics. This is community service. I am not getting back into politics. I'm a community servant. I have something to offer, and no, it was very political. Oh my gosh, I really underestimated my opponent. She had a lot of backing from the teachers union. Now, let me just say, I had a lot of support among teachers, but the teachers union is strong as an organizing body, political body.
But they only TPPF. Nobody knows better how strong the teachers unions are. They think we're the devil. So it took us 32 years to beat them. So
yeah, they're very strong.
They're a very strong union.
And so I underestimated like how hard I really needed to work. But you know me, I'm a little competitive.
Love a challenge.
And love a challenge, and I would not give up. And I knocked on doors, and a handful of people who truly love me joined me in every day knocking on doors and asking people to vote for me.
And knocking on doors is the key. We know that, despite
Absolutely.
you weren't texting people every day, but you can. But
and honestly, what I had going for me is that my trustee district that I represent today, 80% of it was in my legislative district, which I won by knocking on doors and running a real active grassroots operation from constituent services through my re-elections. And so when I was going back to them, they would say, "Oh, of course, Mike. I'm so glad you're running again." Or, "What? I haven't been voting for you for the last decade." "No, you haven't, but you have a new opportunity to." And so I had a lot of goodwill in the community and folks who welcomed me back and helped me.
Well, so what's the plan? Because I was wondering when you said that part of what you wanted to do was to talk to the legislators about what teachers are saying. What's the plan? You said when you were elected on election night, this is just the beginning. We're going to create more schools that children love.
Yes.
So
yes.
So somehow teachers are going to help you with that, because I generally think they're not as much help. But
no, Sherry, teachers are hugely important. Well, now let's separate. There are teachers unions,
right,
and then there are teachers,
right,
and there. If this is a Venn diagram, there is an overlap, but not a large one. So like our local union, I think represents about maybe 20% of the teachers.
So it's like the AAUP, which represents like 5%.
Sure. And so I think they are a very important voice. I mean, when it comes down to it, the work of public education happens within the relationship of teacher and student.
Sure. I get that.
And so
former teacher, actually.
Yeah. So you know this. And so I what is the plan?
Yes, what's the plan?
I'm 2 months in, so give me a little time.
You haven't even fixed it yet.
I know I haven't even fixed it. I do not have a master plan yet. I am spending my first really year trying to study, understand, listen, spend time in the schools, ask lots of questions, so that really, when it comes down to it, the role of the trustee is to provide oversight, and that means I need to be asking lots of questions. And if you talk to my superintendent, he will tell you he gets lots of questions from me. And we have created, because of concerns or questions I've asked, we've already created some ad hoc committees. Like, here's one of my big questions. Why? So I got elected at June 3rd. We had to pass our budget at the end of June. So I had very little time to affect it. But one of the things I observed was we weren't really talking about student outcomes. And part of it was that I came in kind of late into the budget process, but truly the school budgeting process needs to more genuinely start with student outcomes. What did we try last year that worked?
Right.
What did we try last year that did not work? What are the budget implications for leaning into the things that we tried that really looked promising, that we can scale because we now have evidence? And what are the budget implications for abandoning strategies that do not appear to work? So I want us to, so we've created an ad hoc committee to reimagine how we pass a budget, because that is clearly in our lane as trustees.
Sure.
Adopting a budget. And we want this to not be an accounting exercise. We want it to be an exercise of student outcomes, advancing student outcomes. And we need better information. We need information on return on investment. This is how we're using Title I dollars in these schools. This is how we're using it in these other schools. What is the return on our investment from those decisions? So we're changing the process, and that's really comes from just asking questions, and so my plan is to keep doing that in this first year.
Well, tell me about the meaning of, and you talked about some schools in SAISD that were determined to be, I'm getting the words wrong.
Academically unacceptable.
Academically unacceptable.
Yeah, they're DRF.
They were DRF. So, and I want to ask you about DRF. But one of the things that they were talking about, two components that needed to change, and one was the problem of ineffective teacher collaboration. What is that? Ineffective teacher collaboration. I was looking at that, and it's like, well, does that mean that teachers are not talking to administrators, they're not talking to students, not talking to each other?
And where are you grabbing this?
In the plan from coming out of those DRF schools, they wanted to.
Oh, okay.
They wanted to improve the teacher.
Yeah. Well, I haven't read exactly those plans, but I think what they're talking about is, students are not, except for the very early grades, students are shared by teachers.
Sure.
And every teacher learns something different about a student. And the learning that happens in one subject matter builds on another subject matter across the hallway. And even teachers that are working with different students but are all teaching, say, math that has sort of a cumulative building sequence to it, it's really valuable for them to coordinate. And so if teachers aren't collaborating with each other,
got it,
they're not. They're more effective when they are doing it together and they're sharing their learning and they're developing interventions together in a collaborative way. So I suspect that is what they're talking about.
So they know if a certain kid responds to this and doesn't respond to this, so you don't need to waste time going on that particular path. Another term that was
or one teacher is failing to adequately lay a foundation for a certain set of lessons, and then that is coming home to roost one grade later when they can't do some other advanced type of mathematics problem.
Because they never got this other piece.
Yeah.
Which you would think they would know from testing.
It comes down to are we one of the hardest jobs. There's two really hard jobs. One is teaching, and the other is being a principal, and they just work so much harder than most people. The number of hours they put in every day is really. I don't think people really appreciate how long their days are, and intellectually and emotionally exhausting, and so it's a hard job. One thing that we have tried to do, and I think it has borne some fruit, is to give them planning time to do these collaborations. If you fill their day with required meetings, required professional development that doesn't really fill, them with meaningful.
And being in the lunchroom and standing in the hall.
If you fill their days with lots of things that don't let them plan and collaborate, then they're not going to be as effective. One thing we have done at SISD was to improve the amount of time we allow teachers to work together and plan their programs. And I am proud to report that we've gone from 53% of our schools being DRF to, I wrote it down here.
Oh, good.
38%.
That's great.
So it's an improvement.
It's a big improvement. That's a big improvement.
It's a big improvement. And this is, during this time of the new DNF, calibration that TEA has rolled out. So that's important. So the standards are harder, and yet we've actually have made important strides. We're not done yet, by far. We have a lot more work to do, but I'm happy to see that we are making progress. The other thing is the number of schools that are A or B has increased from 22 to 30. But we have about 80 schools, so there's more work to be done.
So are those, if you remember, I don't know if you were here during the battle, but I was, getting the A through F ratings was very hard.
I was here, but It happened towards the end of my tenure.
It was kind of a partisan battle, and I remember before COVID, when the first grades came out. So I'm not blaming you for this; you weren't part of this. We have fought this battle, and I was traveling with Governor Abbott and Lieutenant Governor to the schools around the state that had made A's in the first round, and there was one in SAISD, and we went over, and the teachers were so proud, and they wanted to talk about what they were doing. And I was so angry because all the people that had been fighting against A through F. So I'm interested in your opinion, because they said...
Which school was it? Was it downtown? Where was it located?
It was, I think it was a little south of downtown.
Oh, okay.
But I can look it up. I should have known it. But everyone was standing there, and what the knock against it was that this would be embarrassing to the students, or that the parents would not want to see these grades. And it was all and it was all going to be based on economics anyway. And what we learned was that it wasn't necessarily. That's certainly a huge factor. Certainly still a huge factor. But so, what's your thinking? Are these helpful? You just referred to them.
They make communicating simpler. Sometimes it's a little oversimplified, because these ratings are resting on how students perform on standardized testing.
Almost all. Well,
it's entirely based on standardized testing. And I think it's really important that we put standardized testing in its place. Like it's not the whole show.
Right.
Like, it's a proxy for what we really want. What we really want are young people who are critical thinkers, who are effective communicators, who have curious minds, who are going to go out and investigate, explore, create, and lead. But this is just a high stakes standardized exam.
It's true, but we do want them to be able to read and do math.
Yes, we do, but this is a proxy for that. It's not a measure of academic development in a genuine way, in a full way. So, for example, you can get scores to increase without having made a real impact on the learning and academic development, intellectual development of students. How? Well, what we were learning from Houston ISD is you hold the smart kids back. You don't let them take algebra in 8th grade. You keep them in the lower level math, because they help your test scores increase. Well, that's a sure bang way of increasing test scores. Congratulations. But is that really what we want? Is that really serving students? You can hold them back from taking biology, because biology is hard, and let's just hold them back 2 years from taking that course. Now, on the downside, it's going to shorten their runway to take more advanced science courses,
right?
Which is going to impact their ability to be as successful as they can in college. Is that really what we want? So I'm not saying standardized testing should totally go away. We should just have some perspective on this. It's not truly what we want, and we need to be careful that we don't put such high stakes on the adults to hit their numbers, because they will hit their numbers. We won't like the corners they cut to hit their numbers, but they'll hit their numbers.
Well, some of them will. I mean, we haven't been hitting the numbers, and they weren't hitting them in Houston, and
they're hitting them now.
They are beginning to hit them now. They're beginning to hit them now. And I wanted to ask you about that. There was so much blowback in Houston from the community about, and for me, being glib like I am, I watch these meetings and parents come in there screaming, and I'm saying 80% of your kids can't read and they can't do math. And you guys are pounding the table demanding the status quo. So I don't, although I know what you're saying's right too, you can't measure everything. So what did the community have right, and what does the community have right in pushing back against these kinds of numbering, evaluations? And what do they have?
Yeah.
How do you, if you care about outcomes, how do you measure that?
Yeah, I'll really answer that question from my knowledge of my own community. SISD, the last thing we want is the state taking over and removing our local self-governance. Like, what a failure that would be for our community.
Right, yes.
And we don't want that to happen. And I don't think the parents want that to happen, because they want to continue to have a say. And you know what? To keep that from happening as trustees, we need to do better by them. And we need to be, one of my goals for this year is to evaluate. I'm chairing our audit committee. We have not had our first meeting yet. We're about to hire a new auditor. So I'm really excited about hiring a
that
new
sounds like
auditor.
right up your alley.
It really is. Because I think it's an opportunity to evaluate our systems. And I suspect that one of our systems that really needs to be improved is how well we listen to our parents, to our students, to our teachers before we set policies in place. I really do believe, because when you have people who intend to do well, if they're not listening, they're probably going to be making, even if they intend well, they're going to be making subpar decisions. So we need much more effective feedback loops for our central office. And I think if we can do that, it'll be a good systemic kind of remedy that will will keep us on the current course of having more of our schools be academically acceptable, more A's and B's schools, and more schools that have joy in them, that students love to attend. That it's one thing to teach a child phonics and how to read. It's another thing to cultivate a love for reading, where when they come home, they choose to spend time reading a book that they are just curious about. Like, that is something else, and that's what I hope for our kids.
Well, and that hope is shared by TEA Commissioner Mike Villarreal, who has talked a lot about how we teach moving more comprehensively in curriculum. A lot of his work has been to move away from repetitive into comprehensive. I mentioned just before you came in about the Bluebonnet curriculum, which has become controversial. But the goal behind it is the more to provide learning in context for people. Do you have?
Yeah, we have. So I think this high quality instructional material movement is important, and our school district actually lacked a curriculum that was cohesive, coherent across the grades, across math and reading. It was a decision by a prior superintendent to allow for more kind of local control. But what I understand resulted was that teachers felt adrift, and they were having to kind of create their own lessons from scratch, and they were spending lots of hours doing that. And so we weren't really providing them with the structure and resources to be successful. So we've adopted high quality instructional materials that have been recognized by the state. One of them I think it's Bluebonnet under a different name, and that's for our math program. We are rolling out math this year, and then we will be rolling out reading the following year. Why? I don't. I'm just a trustee. These decisions were made before I became a trustee.
No, you can't do that. That's exactly what we don't want.
But apparently that's what we're doing. So stay tuned. But I think this is going to be an example of how well are we doing this? Where are we succeeding in campus by campus, classroom by classroom? Where are we not? And how are we pivoting? Because you can come up with great grand ideas, but it really, in education in particular, all comes down to implementation.
Right, exactly. And we should have said when we were talking about the STAR that, of course, if your friends would ever come back into the state, I mean, that's on Abbott's agenda for the special session is to recreate the standardized test, and so it's been a lot of movement on that. But I'm assuming, and you can tell me, Dr. Villarreal, I'm assuming that the research is moving on this as well, so that there would be better tests to adopt or better ways to evaluate the impact of teaching.
What I'm hearing from teachers is they want tests that inform their practice during the school year. It's not an autopsy. It's not
Oh, right. Oh, no, we failed.
Yeah.
This kid failed again.
What am I supposed to do with this information? The school year is over.
Right.
And so in many schools, there are exams that they implement that allow them to diagnose where a student is strong and weak, what are they lacking, and informs what kind of lessons they need to bring in to shore them up. And all that can happen before the testing period is over, the 9-week period and the semester is over. And I think that is a much more intelligent way of using our teachers' time and our students' time. Mm-hmm. And what if? And look, this is just the two of us, right? We're just brainstorming here. But what if we said, okay, we spend this amount of time and resources on testing. Let's dedicate the vast majority of that to testing that actually improves learning before the end of the school year. And then we'll dedicate a sliver of the rest to do more of this end of year evaluation.
Yeah.
And you know what? That purpose is really to meet the needs of administrators from the superintendent on up to the commissioner of TEA. Why? Because they need a system of accountability on schools. So let's have that sliver where we do accountability testing, standardized testing that's at the end of the year. Let's implement that by taking a representative sample of students at every campus. We don't need to exhaust everybody in this process. We need a representative sample. It's like when you give blood, you don't give all your blood. You give, or else you'll die. you give a sample, and with that sample, they can test a whole bunch of stuff. So we could do the same thing. In fact, we currently do this with the NAEP, the National Assessment. We could still have the tools to hold schools accountable, but reallocate our testing resources so that they get us what we really want, which is higher student outcomes.
I just have a couple more questions. Since we did pass education savings accounts this year, and so some parents will have other options, do you think and there's always been, San Antonio has always been ground zero in this fight because there's always been lots of charters there and lots of affordable private school options as well as unaffordable private school options. Do you think this is going to make a difference? We're not going to do it this next year. It's like another year away.
Yeah, I think it has the potential to make a big difference in changing the education landscape in San Antonio, but it's probably going to happen over time. I think the state is still figuring out how to implement,
Right.
and I'm sure there will be revisions next legislative session, and schools need time to plan and respond. And so there are a number of private schools that are like a wait and see. They're not going to participate. They want to see how it goes.
Right.
But I think the Catholic schools are more eager, but even for them, it's going to take them time to raise capital to figure out where they're going to put new facilities or renovate existing facilities. And so, I suspect it'll have the potential to impact the education landscape in about 5 to 10 years.
Interesting.
And I think for trustees, and we've had this conversation, are we responsible for the education of children who attend schools that we own and operate? Or are we responsible for the education of students who live within our boundaries? And as a board, we believe in the second.
Oh, wow.
We believe we're responsible for the larger community. And so we are wanting to make policies that recognize students are going to move. They're going to maybe start at a private school and then eventually come into one of our schools, or they're going to start with us and go to a private school. If it's anything like the charter school experience, we see a lot of our kids who start in charter and then come join us. And we need systems in place to ramp them up and have them be where they need to be, regardless of where they start. And we also need to use this as an opportunity to learn. Why are they leaving us?
Right.
What can we do better? And maybe there are opportunities to collaborate. I'm for that. At the end of the day, our larger mission is to nurture the next generation of leaders who will self-govern.
I think that's so well put. That's great. And it's not even that limited. I mean, you might do 2 years in public school, then there might be an experimental pod in your neighborhood with 12 kids, and you're going to do that. And then you
That's right.
just on maybe one focus, and then you go back into public school. So you're going to a charter, you're going to somebody, or maybe you just maybe the kid just follows the teacher. The teacher wants to go to a different place.
True.
They could
Absolutely.
They could do that as well.
And SISD has leaned into this idea of school choice. So we have the most number of 1882 partners in our school district.
That's terrific.
Statewide. Oh yeah, we have leaned in big time. If you drive on the highway, you'll see a big sign that says schools of choice, SAISD. and so we try to promote all of there's a variety. If you're interested in becoming a medical doctor, we have a school called CAS Med where you can go and start learning within the context of healthcare at a very early age. If you're interested in business and tech, we have CAS Tech. If you're interested more of kind of a project-based learning, Montessori for big kids, we have the Advanced Learning Academy that happens to where my kids went to school. It's more of a traditional liberal arts education. They had a great education there. We have a great IB program at Jefferson High School that's an 1882 school. So on and on, we have tried to create schools of choice to recognize that students have different needs, and really it's about fit. There isn't a hierarchy. It's about what speaks to you, what interests you, and I think that's really important. One of our principles is student agency, and so allowing them to have choice matters.
Cool. Well, my last question is, are you optimistic? What's the biggest challenge that you're facing, and do you feel good about what's happened?
I am optimistic whenever I spend time with young people. I do. I attended 10 high school graduations.
Oh, great.
Oh my gosh. Again, I had just got sworn in, like immediately the next week. I'm at high school graduations, and I had an opportunity to speak at some of them. So that was also nice, as a reformed politician. Can't help but speak at big events. But it was great. I got to be in the middle of this big celebration and hear stories. Like a lot of students got to speak at their different graduations and hear about their struggles and trials and their own optimism for the future. It's just inspiring. So whenever I spend time with our young people, I just can't help but feel confident about the future.
That's great. That is just great. Mike, thank you so much for coming in. It was just wonderful to see you.
Thank you for inviting me. It was a pleasure to be here with you.
And thank you all for joining us. You can subscribe to The Sherry Sylvester Show at Apple or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. Follow me on X at Sylvester1630. And if you'd like to receive my 9th in Congress newsletter, including my weekly winners and losers list, you can sign up at TPPF's website, www.texaspolicy.com/9th in Congress. You can also follow me on Substack. See you next time.